being offended has become an art, and I can prove it. The weird thing is when I started seeing those articles come out several years ago, actually, it'd be on Facebook and it'd say 10 ways to understand an introvert, 10 things you should never say to an introvert. Those were at least the first things I saw, and it was like, hey, here's a fragile person that you need to be careful around, and here's what you should do. You need a guidebook in order to be a friend to this particular person. Uh, I'm sure it happened before then. I'm sure there were other scenarios, but that's when I noticed it. And then it grew into this thing where there's rules for interacting with every single person on Earth, and in fact, there are people that get paid to be experts in this field to teach you. Like they'll come and do a corporate training and teach you about what is offensive. And in the act of doing that, they will actually teach individuals from those groups what they should be offended by, which is crazy. So the reason I bring this up is because we watched Robin Hood with the kids, the old Disney show that's fantastic, and it was like it's only in the adult version of Disney Plus, so there's like a wall to get to it. But why is it? So then we were discussing what is it that was offensive about Robin Hood. We had to figure that out. I'm still not sure what it was. So we watched it with the kids, and everyone had a great time. Anyway, so I want to get into some offensive stuff. But before we do, if you haven't backed Clint Stoker's Dracula, please do. We hit our first stretch goal to 13,000. I'm going to be announcing a $15,000 stretch goal. And we're going to keep pushing this. In fact, I think for the first 300 backers, there needs to be something special because the number 300 is important to me. I don't know why. It just has become that way. It is symbolic. So first 300 backers, I think we're going to do another special trading card that's just for the first 300 backers. So if you've already backed, you're great. You're going to want to share that around though, and you'll have the day one trading card, and there'll be a 300 trading card. It's going to be awesome. So if you want to get in on that, I would back it. Links in the description below. All right. So I saw this on Twitter. They said the amazing thing about George Lucas is how this particular character, I forget his name, but there were like 15 different races and ethnicities that were offended by him because they thought he was a caricature of their race. Well, that's interesting. So it got me thinking about if you have to be told why something is offensive, if it has to be explained to you when you're the one that should be offended, then maybe it's not offensive after all. It is strange. And I'm not going to think I'm over this, like I'm high and mighty, because I will watch television shows and still think, what's the agenda in here? It's so hard for me to separate it. I'm trying to look for that stuff actively, and it will definitely ruin movies a lot of the time. Obviously, if it hits you over the head, that's one thing. But this is the world that we live in now. It's developed this hypersensitivity, and you're constantly sniffing it out to figure out where they stand. But in this case, it's like you're trying to be funny. Apparently, the bear in Ted is offensive. I mean, it's supposed to be, I think, but. Looking through this list here, Christmas Jones. Let's see. I'm gonna find some like popular ones. So they're gonna go through. Oh, Biff. Here we go from Back to the Future. Why is he offensive? Hill Valley bully boy who remains a jerk even after Marty McFly has traveled back in time to sort him out in Back to the Future. What's the most offensive moment? Why be offended by this guy? Changing the course of human history and keeping Richard Nixon in office with the help of the time machine and Sports Almanac from 2015. So Back to the Future 2 is the reason. Is that 2 or 3? I don't know. What that's the reason why this character's offensive. It's a story. Like this is why you should be offended. Okay. Even though he's the bad guy, you'd think you'd be the opposite. Of course, dressing up as Jill in Jack and Jill is offensive. Let's see. When it becomes obvious that Al Pacino, yes, that Al Pacino, is in love with her, retrospectively destroying respect for one of cinema's greatest actors. That's why the character's offensive, I guess. I mean, everyone's allowed to make a bad movie, I suspect. Lady on the Water was just a terrible movie. I don't know that it was offensive. It was just not good. John, let's see. This is, yeah, The Karate Kid. I don't even know what that movie's from. It's endless. It goes on and on and on. And if you have to read why you should be offended, that is the problem. If you genuinely are offended, if something offends you, in fact, I'm going to say that's okay. Like, if that's your knee jerk reaction, then don't watch the movie or read the comic book. You know what I mean? Like, it's offensive. It's annoying. You don't like it. Spider-Man selling his soul to the devil, that's offensive. So I guess be offended. But if somebody tells you that you need to be offended and you have to read a guide for how to do it, well, now that's gone a whole other level. It's gone crazy at that point. Anyway, I'm just scrolling now. Ebenezer Scrooge from the Muppet Christmas Eve. Why is this offensive? Why they're offensive? It's Christmas Eve, and the miserly landlord won't give his Muppet workers or tenants a day off from their misery. Humbug. Oh my goodness. It's not offensive if the whole point is that he's a bad person. They're showing you that he's a bad person so that he can change and have the character growth moment and become a good person at the end. This shouldn't be offensive. Like, you got to wait for the story to finish. You got to wait for the other shoe to drop. If the point of a character is just to offend you, to make you upset, and that's it, then sure, like, if you genuinely feel offended, be offended. If a character is a bad person and changes and becomes a good person, you have to realize it's intentional. It's a story that was written that way. It's to show you there's growth. It's not, oh my gosh. It's the craziest. Oh, serial killer. Is he offensive? My goodness. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. Can you think of a time that you yourself have been told that you ought to be offended by something based off of whatever characteristics you have, you should be offended, and you just weren't? That's what I'm actually curious about. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to back Dracula. It's not offensive at all, unless you're a vampire or a lawyer, or I could think of a number of things. Don't be offended. Do back it, though. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.